session is about transcending, regenerating advice practices away from perhaps what have been really, really typical client banks for advisors, full of people with some hundreds of thousands of pounds to look after, up into seriously wealthy people, maybe below private office, where you've got a whole team of people looking after you and making sure that little Jehoshaphat doesn't spend it all on drugs or something, I don't know, whatever it is that rich people do. But below that, but significantly more affluent than the average kind of wealth of an IFA client in the UK, which depends on what businesses you look at, but popularly believed to be somewhere in the £200,000 to £500,000 mark. That's an average. I know we're in London and all that kind of stuff, but that's pretty typical. We're talking about pushing up into the multiple millions here, and these are clients who, as we said earlier on, generally have been served most often by the private banks. But some planners are doing an astonishing job of hitting into that market and giving these clients financial planning, which they haven't been used to before, and perhaps changing the way that they think about their money. The two firms that I would like to introduce you to are Satis Wealth, and we've got Hitesh Jogia from Satis Wealth, and many of you I'm sure will know Petronella West from Investment Quorum. Please welcome them both. What we did was shake hands here like we haven't just been chatting backstage for 15 minutes, but it's what you do, right, at these sort of things. Welcome, both of you. Thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate it. Petronella, I might start with you. Let's just have a moment from you, if you would, about your firm's approach to the kind of clients that we're talking about that maybe are coming from a background where they haven't been part of many IFA's client banks.
Well, I think the main, I mean, I've been in the industry a very long time, forever, but I think the main thing is it's about building relationships.
Two years?
It's a very good hairdresser, very good hairdresser. I think the thing is that I've done this job since I was 18 years old, so I've built a client bank over a very long period of time, and IQ is now 24 years old, even though we went through a different stage of ownership. But what's been consistent is the relationship with the client. And the one thing that the clients really value is constancy. And you know, one of the things we've been talking a little bit about is that as we grow fresh, new, young advisors into the industry, we've got to be working with those advisors to build that continued relationship with the client. So I think it's simply the longevity that we've looked after clients, and then we look after, as you said, was it little Johnny who's taking drugs? But, you know, there are let's face it, family life is messy, which is probably why most of us have relationships with our clients. So I think it's that long-term consistency of relationship with clients that they built wealth over time.
Yep, Hitesh.
Yeah, just a bit of background on Satis Wealth. So we're owned by an accountancy practice called Hillier Hopkins. So we're based out of Central London office and the Watford office. I think one of the things that clients are really starting to appreciate, who are our target clients, is they want the combination of good, sound, full-fat financial planning and tax advice. Yeah. And I think we're positioned quite well to service those clients. And the main thing is don't underestimate the value of simplicity, and always be communicating with the clients. And we've built our business going all the way back to, you know, the firm's Hillier Hopkins going back 90 plus years. It was founded on that ethos of giving great client service. And I'm proud to say that actually we've never let the standards drop.
Okay, that's great. So when we're talking about clients that are approaching you with multiple millions, do they present with different requirements? Do they feel different? First of all, do they feel wealthy when they come and talk to you?
Well, that's a very interesting question, because why would a client with 50 million need to do cash flow? Sometimes they need to do it because there's just too many zeros to compute. Also because they don't know how much they're spending, they don't know how much they can give away. You know, the more money you make, the more frightened you get that you might lose it, the more frightened you get that you give it to little Johnny, you'll end up on drugs. But you know, I don't think so. I mean, the needs are slightly more complex. Your will requirements, your attorney requirements. And I think it's being able to have the conversation with very intelligent individuals. I mean, I was chatting to Tom earlier. You know, we have people in this industry have financial advisors simply because they want the considered opinion of someone who can see it all. Mm-hmm. So, you know, I'm not going to discuss about what's the best investment solution for those clients, but it's more about when you've got the breadth and scope and experience to deal across the whole gamut of that client's lifestyle, from their business to their personal life, their children, the wants are the same: look after me, take care of me, make sure I'm going to be okay, can I trust you? The zeros don't really matter. They just want to be organised. And busy people don't. I mean, half the people, clients are so busy, they don't even know what they've got. You know, and we've got to bring them to the table and make them responsible and keep them abreast of what's going on.
Well, that's one of the things that I've wondered about. And Hitesh, obviously, with a link to Hillier Hopkins, link to the accounts, you've got people who are engaging with your firm on a lot of different levels.
Yeah, sure.
At any point in time. But do these people tend to be delegators because they imagine many are running businesses and all that kind of stuff? How engaged are they?
Well, I think the if we look at the owner business managed segment, you know, they're used to delegating to their accountant, and they just want to know very, very quickly what are the headline figures. And I think we've tried to replicate that in our business as well at Satiswell. I know when I was having a conversation with you, Mark, privately, was what these clients are facing at private banks is they're not being given the simple message of, are they going to be okay, and what has the firm done for them? So it's just getting back to those absolute basics. So yeah, they are used to delegating, so that's not a problem. But then on the other end of the scale, if you think life happens, we do come across clients which are successful business owners, but unfortunately, it could be a husband and wife or whatever. One of those partners dies, and then all of a sudden, the surviving spouse really has to take control of that finances. And you find you have to hold their hands a little bit more. So you've still got to adapt to the client's situation.
And I guess one of the things I've found surprising as we've chatted way before this is that that's a point of difference for what you do as planners compared to the kind of services that people are getting from very fantouche, impressive private banks who have, I was going to say who have wood-panelled offices, but here we are, there's quite a lot of wood panelling here. But this is the good sort, and theirs is the bad sort, right?
Don't write them all off.
Good
source of business.
Okay, well, I was going to say, but I wouldn't have expected that to be a point of differentiation, but do you find that it is, that sort of looking after the whole client kind of holistic advice? Both of you, but start with you now.
Well, I mean, listen, we talk about, I think Dennis Hall did a thing on financial planners, financial advisors, wealth managers, whatever we call ourselves. At the end of the day, you've got the regulated bit and you've got the investment piece. So most of the big wealth managers don't have regulated advisors and haven't wanted to foray into that place, but their clients still need financial advice. And that's kind of where we come in. So it's working with the accountants, the lawyers, I'm sure all of us do. So our source of revenue isn't only winning an investment mandate, it's also winning proper fee-based, you know, brilliant advice that we give to them and important advice that we give to them. So we can work with them. You know, we're not trying to, there's enough business for everybody. So there's kind of, you know, it's just looking at the client in that different cell. So as advisors, if we're giving financial planning advice, whether it's cash flow modelling, the product is just the end result, the pension or the ISA. The investment is just the mechanism that powers the financial plan, where the overarching advice is where all the importance is. So it doesn't really matter where you fit within all of that, as long as you can kind of do the whole, we can do the whole piece.
So would it be fair to say then, Hitesh, maybe to you, that the sense of being looked after as a person is something if firms were thinking about trying to win clients from the banks, is that a thing to kind of major on, do you think?
I think ultimately you want to be the client's trusted advisor, where they go to you and say, look, I have this problem, can you help me, or can you get somebody to fix it? And if you're then positioned where you know that a good accountant, you know a good lawyer or solicitor, you happen to, for instance, know a good mortgage broker because the children are buying their first properties, I think that's a great, perfect relationship to be in, where you're essentially coordinating everything. And clients will appreciate that, because they don't expect you to know everything, but they do expect you to be honest and know, look, I can't do this, but I know somebody who can, and you're able to coordinate that and handhold them along that journey. I think they do appreciate it.
I think the problem with private bankers, though, is that they're remunerated by bring us more assets or sell some EIS, VCT scheme, whatever, like at Barclays Wealth or whatever. I mean, and that's the problem. But that's endemically the problem, is that you don't want to, people don't want to go and see their advisor because they're going to be sold something. They don't want that.
Well, I think that's definitely something to probe. Because one of the things that, again, as we've been working on this session with you, it seems incredible to me that the banks are taking that approach, because the potential jeopardy for them is huge. So if a financial planner says, hey, listen...
Shareholder value.
But not if they all leave,
No,
right?
well, that's true.
Yeah.
Do you find I know from time to time you'll work with banks, and I know many planning firms will have arranged with banks for Lombard lending and that kind of stuff. But when it's a case of winning a client away from those kind of structures, do you find that the banks are starting to try and learn this kind of language of holistic advice and planning, or are they really doing what Nella's saying and punting at the latest, whatever it might be?
My honest opinion is that they keep scoring own goals.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, definitely. I can only go by the experience that I've had. The team and I have been working on a client who has an investment portfolio with 2 private banks, and between them they have about £17.5 million between both the providers. And we asked the client point blank at that stage, who do you trust between them two? And she said, neither.
Really?
Because she goes, I'm being constantly products sold, whether it's a BPR portfolio or put £5 million in an AIM portfolio, all of these ridiculous things that they keep pitching to her. And they're just getting fed up. So we've actually successfully onboarded that client just in the last week. Uh-huh. But what we've also seen on the other side is that the private banks will resort to anything to try and keep the client as well. Really? So we're seeing both sides we're seeing the dirty side and the not so good side. So
without mentioning names, but you can if you want, what sorts of things do you see when people are trying to say, no, these horrible financial planners are terrible people, you don't want to go with them, you want to stay with our BPR portfolio or whatever. Nella, do you ever get that kind of pushback?
No, not really, but that's because I'm probably not... It's not really a question of don't use Petronella or Hitesh because they're dodgy IFAs or whatever. Hopefully we've come a long way from there now. So we're more about building relationship with private bankers to do the bit that they can't do. Uh-huh. So it's working together with them. It's coaching them on the things that they should be considering to give their clients a better service, so they look better. And then they'll give us the planning advice, and we'll get paid for that. So if it's a fight for the assets, if we want the £3 million mandate, you've got the 3, so we want to try and win it. I mean, for me, the best thing is to provide advice for the clients, bring the investment portfolios under your investment consultancy, yep. And eventually you'll win it all anyway.
And they'll never know. They'll never spot your cunning plan all the way through. And Hitesh, I know we've talked before about the incredible complexity of what some of these clients are being provided. Yeah. And I know you had a stunning example of some paperwork from one of the banks. If you fancy sharing that story.
Yeah, so actually it was from the same client that I just talked about right now. So as part of our research and once you've done the discovery meeting, you gather all the information about the assets and what they've got. So we put in a formal request from both investment providers to say, look, could you provide us a valuation, income statements, CGT documents, all the usual stuff that we ask for. So first provider decides to send to me, actually, do you want to have a guess how many pages they sent
This is good.
Or sent our company?
We've got a zero.
You got a zero there.
555
pieces of paper.
Just from 555 pieces of paper from one provider. Second provider sent to me about 425. So they basically said, look, we know you want to nick a bit of our business. Let's start with that. But it's important to not let that phase you at all whatsoever.
Okay. I mean, that... actually, this goes to a question that somebody's asked here from Alistair, whichever Alistair it is. Thank you for your question. And he says, the offering from Satis and IQ sound all-encompassing, which I think is nice. I think that's a good thing, Alistair. I hope so. He says, for smaller IFAs or planners aspiring for growth, would you guys say it's important to have asset management permissions with the FCA to be able to offer the type of services that high net worth individuals require? And if not, would you still use DFMs and outsource? But I think that, that kind of goes to that resourcing point as well. You get a client, you're like, we can really do something great here, and suddenly 1,000 pages of unit statements turn up. Yeah. If you don't have a big back office team, how on earth do you deal with that? Just at night?
Well, I'm a bit confused by the paperwork. Surely the assets transfer in specie, but I don't know. I suppose maybe CGT stuff. But
CGT stuff, yeah.
But no, I mean, we've grown a lot in the last 3 years, and actually that's been the hardest economic investment markets to navigate, and there's a lot of icebergs, and we hit a few. It's been incredibly difficult, and everyone says with the benefit of hindsight, I should have predicted the war, all the energy crisis, everything, and I should have just bought them, a tracker in US whatever, and made them a fortune. Well, that's great with the benefit of hindsight, but does investment have to be spectacularly complicated? If we've got algorithms, cheap investments, everything at 10 bips, 20 bips, no bips, I don't know. You know, and we're all getting a bit of a wake up and a shake up now, aren't we? Because actually, was anybody any good when money was so cheap? Now we're beginning to see whether people can really manage money again. And is it actually just easier to buy just a tracker why would you bother paying somebody 100 bips or 75 bips to manage your money? So I think it's a very complicated new paradigm that we're working into.
I think with Satis Wealth, we're very much into the systematic investing and using a combination of index trackers. So for us, we just can't see the value in any investment manager purchasing single equity companies. We just can't see it. But what I would say to the person who's asked that question, the main thing is have a clear investment philosophy, how you want to manage money, and stick to it. Because there's too many people in this profession that say they have a certain philosophy and they're constantly changing their own beliefs as well because they're scared about the conditions or what will the client think. You've got to have conviction as well in what you're providing to the client. And the first stage, I truly believe, is that if you're going to recommend a portfolio to your client, you should have your own money invested in that portfolio as well.
Get in the game.
That way, the interests are aligned. The minute you stop doing that, your interests are not aligned with the client whatsoever.
Totally.
That's really interesting. And that's a potential point of difference, I guess, because the planning side of the advice profession, those that are planning first rather than perhaps those that take more of an investment side of it, kind of downplay that investment element a lot more. And I'm wondering if for these wealthier clients who are used to being told about the latest, greatest POS that they should buy or whatever it might be, how important are those investment discussions? And you've both got clients who are kind of more typical IFA clients as well. Is it just horses for courses, or generally do they enjoy talking about investment a little bit more?
But my theory on this is that if we've got this amount of clients, there's this 10% here, and I call them the hobbyists. I don't know where I picked that out of a book somewhere. I think it was Chris Budd or something, and it just talks about some clients will want everything, you know? They'll want the asset allocation, the underlying stock. Can I buy cannabis? Can I buy this? Can I buy Bitcoin? That's great, but the majority of our clients trust us to make the right investment decisions for them and quite frankly, aren't interested. And we speak a lot of effing jargon and crap at them all the time, and you know what they really want to know. And we did some client surveys last year on the back of Consumer Duty. We did a client dinner, and what they really, really value: security, stability, trust, all the things that all the of course they want investment. I'm not saying, you know, you're going to put them in, lose them a shitload of, lose them a ton of money. But the point is, that they don't want that. But I mean, we're talking about long-term investing, and everything is so short-term now. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like from this to that to this to that, and it's like, whoa, to slow down. We're talking about a 10 or 15 time-year horizon for most of our clients. Half of them aren't even ever going to touch their pension funds. And so it's about like calming them down, you know, being realistic, reassuring them. I mean, but being structured. The one thing I've learned in the last 18 months a lot, now we've got more resources, is just give the clients structure in the meeting. Tell them what you're going to discuss at the meeting. Give them a chance to talk what they want to talk about. Check in again with them 6 months later. A year between reviews, I don't think works anymore. I mean, they've got to be paying you enough profitability. But just check in 6 months' time. Random acts of kindness. And it's like having built more structure around that, they're less worried when the investment markets go a bit haywire.
And that sounds to me exactly what most planners would espouse for all clients, not particularly special for these wealthier clients. Do you feel the same?
Yeah, definitely so. I think just adding on to Petronella's point, between 2010 and 2018, the markets went up every single year, and those conversations were relatively easy. You then look at between 2018 till now, and that journey has not been easy for the client. And sometimes you just got to sit with the client and let them get it off their chest. You know, if the markets have had a bad year, just listen to them. Because that's all, you know, you can produce any chart that you want, but ultimately what the client wants to do is listen. But going back to what Petronella said, the main thing is tell them what you can tell them, and summarize, remind them what you tell them, and keep it simple.
Well, that's, in a way, this is really encouraging stuff, I think, because if I read what you're saying correctly, there's no secret sauce to this. It's doing the basics really well, and that works for somebody with £10 million as it does for someone with £500,000.
But financial planning is really straightforward. I know we have lots of exams. The magic that a good advisor brings is being able to look back, step back and look at it all, and being able to see how the client needs to kind of move the pieces around on the chessboard. But each individual component part, I put money in my pension, I get tax relief. Whoa, big deal. But it's like, how much do I put in, and should I put it in? Should I put it this? And it's those decisions around those bigger decisions is where we bring our skill, which is why the financial planning exams more on active like case study stuff makes much more sense than how much life insurance should.
Sure.
But the main thing is we're not trying to sell our businesses on the back of investment performance, are we? It's about providing that financial planning piece, wealth management piece, and being that professional sounding board for the partner. Because the minute you start to sell your service on investment performance, it will go haywire.
That's super, super useful. And again, really encouraging. I don't think anybody needs to relearn how to be a planner in order to deal with these kind of clients in that regard. Let's talk a little bit pricing and cost for these kind of clients.
No,
because many of them, I think, are used to paying pretty chunky fees where they are. And I'm aware of, perhaps not your businesses, but other businesses in this space who've made a pretty good coin out of saying, listen, we are significantly lower cost than the banks that you're dealing with at the moment. Is that something that's a topic of discussion with your wealthier clients, or are they not too fussed?
I think they will look at it once you've had the chance to present it to it, because in the case of Satis Wealth, a lot of clients that we take from the private banks, it's because we've been fortunate to have a second chance at it. Because just think about this for a second. Imagine you did not do this profession at all whatsoever. You had no knowledge of investments. You sell out of a business, or you make multi-million pounds, and you're shopping around as to who to manage your money, and you keep your affairs private. The chances are a lot of you in this place will go towards a private bank. So at the time when we get a second chance, because they've gone to the private bank and they really sit down and we show to them, well, look, this is what you've been paying versus what they pay to us. That's a head turn, actually, because they look at the cost. Like I said, we successfully took on a client from an investment manager that was an issue for about £8 million. And she sent in the charges and fees disclosure. And the family was paying almost £200,000 in fees per annum. And we were able to come in at 96,000, so we saved the client over 50%. They look back at it and think, well, did we delay it too long? But there comes a point you've got to say to the client, what's happened has happened, let's move on.
Yeah. Okay, what about you, Neil?
Well, I think the breakdown of MiFID costs and charges on valuations and things has really confused clients. So now they never looked at fees, so they're losing money. Then they look at the fees and they go, how much are you taking? Like, no, I'm not taking all that money. And then you have to do that whole breakdown between underlying fund costs and things. Then the passives go, ooh, you see, look how much cheaper we are. And, it's so the one thing I've really...
Just like that, that's what they sound like.
It's a bit. But the point is, I think what I'm really learning is in tougher economic conditions, nobody really looked at price. However, there's a reason why someone walks into Harrods, and there's a reason why someone walks into Lidl. If you go, you're going for an experience, it's going to cost you. It's kind of like Stella Artois, reassuringly expensive. And I'm not trying to be cheap. And I think the investment should be a fair value for giving the return. But what we've got to do is separate the true value of the financial planning piece. And that's what we've really done. Work out profitability of a client, work out how much money you need to be making, give them the services that's right for that. And don't be ashamed to consider that your ability to step back and look at it is simply a very valuable thing. It's intangible. It's not tax relief. It's not investment return. And maybe you do want to pay it all for the investment, and that's fine. But give the client the chance to decide, or maybe take your fees from a different pot. But it's that... We've become so expert in our field, which is why there's still our financial advisor. We haven't all turned into robots, because clients need that, and that's a really valuable thing that we should learn to price better.
I think one aspect of the role is trying to stop the client from messing up their own financial plan. I just wish there was a spreadsheet where I could say, well, given all the right decisions that we made, if you made all the wrong decisions, this is what the consequences would have been.
Yeah.
I wish there was such a spreadsheet, but there truly isn't.
No, there's not. We've got a couple of questions coming in. Please do ask questions via your chat platform, whether you're at home or in the room, please. We've got a few coming in. I've got one particular thing I want to cover, but I'm going to take a couple of these now. Howard asks, do you have issues with wealthier clients who just don't engage at all? They're just too busy. And so what you need from them in order to give them good planning is super hard to get.
Yeah, they are a nightmare, but it helps to be really bossy, I have to say.
But how do you go about that, Christian?
Turn up on their front doorstep. No, but I do sometimes find that the team will say, can you come in for a review, and then they just get no response, and I send an email. I think they were just shit scared of me. No, but I think you have to tell your client, you have to engage with this and you have to be disciplined. There will be a way to find a way to hook them to, you know, but yeah, you have to be firm. We have to be firm, don't we? We have to tell them what to do. That's what they come to us for.
I would actually add that to a criteria. When you're thinking about what kind of clients you want to serve, you can have your AUM, the age, the type of job, income and everything. But I think, you know, I was talking about it with our colleagues in our office. I think we should add another criteria to that is the client engaged in our services? Because, you know, whilst we do want to grow the business and grow assets under management, but it's got to be at the right time as well. Yeah, it's got to be the client has to be fully engaged in the process because you've got to find job satisfaction as well in what you do. And if you get to that stage where you've got a client who's not interested in your services at all whatsoever, really think about it, that if this client were to call you tomorrow, you know, do you really want to take that phone call or not? And if you don't, then, you know, build it into your business that actually you don't want to take on any clients that are just not interested in your service.
Yeah, don't take on clients that don't value you. And
absolutely. If they don't value you, you know, value yourself and make sure the clients value you.
Wow, and that's a pretty brave thing to say. If you know, not everybody has X million-pound clients walking through the door every day. And
but you are giving up a massive fee income. Don't get me wrong. I mean, you're probably turning back on 15, 20 grand worth of fees. But you've got to find satisfaction in the job. Otherwise, it can be a slog some days.
We have deliberately disengaged with clients. I've rung them up and said, we're just not the firm for you. They're too difficult. They're rude to staff. And it's just not a pleasant experience. So it's worth giving up 15 grand for that. But once they're in, when the toxic clients are in, they're impossible to get rid of, and they just suck the things out, and then they engage with other things. So we always, every client, are they absolutely right for our business? Yeah. You know, as I said, when they start complaining about fees at the outset, it's just they're always going to be complaining about fees, and it's not wrong. There's DIY, there's low cost, there's everything out there for them, just not right for our business or your business.
I've got a question from Patricia here, and it's a great question, Patricia, thank you. Lots of really good points being made by Petronella and Hitesh, but could apply to any client regardless of fund size. Yeah. What do they see as the key differentiator in what they offer or do for high net worth clients versus their other clients? So really probing at what additional is in there, what's the secret that unlocks kind of good service for these clients?
I think the main thing is you have to understand what's important for the client, what makes the client tick. Because again, from experience that I've seen is a client goes to a private bank and the bank is trying to place their importance, their priorities onto the client. So for instance, it could be inheritance tax or whatever. What we're finding is with certain clients, actually they don't care about inheritance tax. What they care about is, gifting money to charity or philanthropy. So I think you've really got to understand what makes the client tick, and that's where you can really differentiate your service. You think it's a simple thing, but the thing is there are people out there that are not, I'd say, not doing the basics, which is listening to what the client wants.
Okay.
I think the only thing I'd add on that is that, I mean, it is a more comprehensive service. We connect with them regularly. We're you know, they're going to get me as opposed to a more junior advisor, you know, or they're going to get two of us on the team. We're going to be updating stuff all the time. So it's a very comprehensive, it's all agreed with them. But the thing that I've learned is that our starting point with them in asking about how do you feel about this and their relationship with money. What does money mean? I've got the richest guys that give it away and the richest guys that just, you know, hoard it. And you've got to get under the skin of what money really means to them and their relationship with money, their purpose with money, their higher purpose. And it's kind of where we kind of go into that coaching bit. But it is really fundamental to spend that time at the beginning. And I think that's probably where I think we maybe...
That's super, thank you. I was having a chat with somebody, and this is going to sweep up a couple of questions, particularly the ones from Andy and from Ian. Thank you for your questions. But I was chatting to somebody who's involved in technical platforms and so on that the banks use and that kind of stuff. And his view was that because advisors don't typically use multi-currency platforms, you're not buying direct equity portfolios, you're not looking at best execution and making sure the right market makers are getting accessed for all these kind of people, that you're never going to crack this kind of market until IFAs, planners, learn to do that. You'll always be picking at the edges. And particularly Andy's question is, if there's one major pain point advisors would like fixed tomorrow by the industry, what is it? And I think that goes to that. The industry, so that's the manufacturing bit over here, the grubby bit, what can it do to help you with these clients? Or do you just not need it? You're fine with the kind of solutions that you've...
I think based upon the question that he's asked, I just don't think it's it's important at all. You're talking about best execution and buying direct equities. Again, that comes back down to a company's ethos of managing money. You've got the active debate versus the passive debate versus the systematic debate. The conversation is now about which one's bet whatsoever. My personal view is based upon how we manage money. That is not important.
Not a big deal.
It's about the service.
And you must have at the top end, you must have clients who have dual residency and need stuff into multi-currency and that kind of thing. Can you access what you need?
Yeah, in terms of dual residency, yeah. So Satis is in a unique position where we can help clients. So for instance, who are US citizen but come over here to work, equally UK, that go over to the US. So we can handle that niche. It's never been a problem for us.
Well, I'll be referring to him now. No, we stay out of that stuff. We're just onshore UK. Yes, very wealthy clients need multi-currency. That I do agree with, and that is a pain in the arse. But and also most of my wealthy clients are really just fed up with banks.
Yeah.
Their private, their normal banking. They forget their investment banking. They just, who isn't? Who isn't fed up with their banks? To get what they need.
A couple of kind of quick fire questions I'll make. Coming up to the end of our time.
There's
tons.
Counting down right here.
It's flashing gently. There's no jokes to be made there. Gosh, where do I start with this? 2 or 3 people, Sam and somebody else has just disappeared. We'd love to know not amounts that you charge, but structures. Is it, do you go in with a kind of fixed fee mindset, percentage of assets, tiering? How do you approach?
Yeah, I can just really. So we've got a de minimis fixed fee before we even start on anything. So that's basically just to look at a client, look at cash flow and that kind of thing, and then we just build on from there. We are more fixed fee focused. I kind of work on hourly rates. I roughly know how long something's going to take, and how long my staff's going to take to get information back when we're kind of unpacking a client's bag of tricks. Ongoing, we're still a percentage of assets ongoing. I'm not sure that model is going to continue to work. So we're looking at re-engineering whether we move to a proportion of lower fees ongoing and a retainer from the client, whether it's paid from the portfolio or wherever we're agnostic. It's about the client value proposition that we offer. So work out what you think it costs you to run your proposition and then work backwards as to how you think you're going to get it back off the client.
All right, great.
Yeah, initial fees, nothing. Ongoing, 0.9% on the first million. I think 0.75% on the next 4, and then 0.6 thereafter.
Okay.
So very much a tier-based
Pretty
charging.
in line.
Whether that remains in place over the next decade, I don't know. I can certainly, this is me personally speaking, not on behalf of Satis. I could see a hybrid version of fixed fee and ad valorem. I could definitely see that.
Super interesting, thank you. And again, not that different from what people are doing for existing clients. Again, a quick fire one. A couple of people, Alistair and Matthew particularly, what about marketing, getting to these clients? You've each got, I guess, with where you work, Petronella, you've got affluent clients.
50 million other IFAs on my doorstep.
Well, yes, that is true. And Hitesh, you've got a link to the accountancy practice. But for firms thinking, well, how might I go about marketing myself in order to try and get at these people? Any tips for firms looking at that?
We talked about this earlier. If you give your client the best service and your team give your client the best service, your client is your best advocate for new business and it's free. So we're now asking clients gently, if you think we're doing a great job, Google reviews, get your 80% of our clients business comes from 80%, you know what I mean. Yeah. We get most of it from our existing clients and they're the best advocates for your business. Just sweat them harder.
Yeah,
they're great.
Yeah, last 12 months, our company has really worked hard on offering the second opinion service, which was inspired by John Bowen from CEG Worldwide. So I'd recommend anybody who's looking to build their business, have a look at John Bowen. We started doing that in our business, and it takes time, I would say, for the results to come through, but it's been doing good for our business.
That's incredible. Thank you. Listen, we're at time. I could carry on talking about that all day, and I do have questions I didn't get to, so I'm sorry about that. I don't know if you guys are going to be around a little bit later. I know Petronella has to dive away, but Hitesh is going to stay around, so you can maybe grab Hitesh at the break. What I heard from that was that the skills that you need are there. Develop a service proposition that you think fits and do it. And
be nice and be professional. You go miles.
Don't overcomplicate it. Absolutely tremendous. Thank you so much, Hitesh and Petronella.